since so. Hello. Welcome to the live with EIE, Office of the Citizen. My name. Oh, I didn't know that this background was books. I look very intellectual. My name is Chude Jideonwo, and I think that my guest Stephanie will be joining me anytime soon. We're going to spend the next 45 minutes stories from across many underserved and troubled communities. There's no better person at a time like this in Nigeria than Stephanie to be trying to tell the story of communities and people and families that are dealing with the harsh effects of this pandemic at this time. Hi, Stephanie.
Hello.
Hi,
Can you hear me?
Steph. I can hear you clearly. You
Hello.
look lovely.
Thank you.
Lockdown looks good on you.
Oh, really? Oh, my God. Okay. Coming from you, I'll take that.
Yes, take it. It's also a bit of
I'll
Ghanaian
take
humor at
it.
this point. How are you?
I'm fine.
I,
Do you know, I've never been busier, but I'm good. I'm
yeah,
good.
I'm glad. I saw your Mother's Day message about your daughter, and I'm like, yes, way to go. You did it.
Listen, this girl, NZ doesn't send.
Yes, not joking at all. They're like,
Gen
I'm not
Z are
going to suffer
way ahead.
the indignities and the restrictions that your own generation allowed you to suffer. Like, I'm going to take
Yeah.
charge of my destiny from the start. Yeah?
Yeah, I'm
Fantastic.
struggling to
Let's
hear
start
you.
this.
So,
Yes, great to see you. I spoke about storytelling in a time of crisis. And I was just telling the guests before we came on, one of the things I think is most important in your work is empathy. You have a capacity, and I've worked with you.
today, I'm struggling to hear you.
Is it any better? No.
A little.
Oh my God. I think it's the internet. Should we put this off and see? Let's put this off and see. Okay. Is it
Okay.
any better now?
Yes.
Are you sure?
You're still
So
a bit
just making it.
pixelated, but I can hear you now.
Okay, but you can hear me. Okay, we'll do it
Yes.
here. Okay,
Yes.
great.
Okay.
So, I was telling the people who are joining us that one of the things that I find most remarkable about your work is empathy
Oh.
of the people whose stories you're telling, the other storytellers who you're working with, and just kind of like imagine that you are the one whose story was being told. Yeah. Do you find that would be a very crucial skill at a time like this?
Absolutely. So for the first time, I think that journalists globally are able to bring a sense of empathy to stories right now, because we are not just bystanders in this story. We are involved in it. Normally we're standing at a spot, or we're looking in from the and relaying that information to our audience, but now we're part of it. And so we can't help but have that empathy, because we know the struggles that everybody's going through. We've had friends, family members, all affected by COVID. We're working at home, we're under lockdown, the same as everybody else. So we can't help but have that empathy. And it's something that actually, it's something that is important to my
Yeah,
work, having that sense of
yeah,
empathy, because just the kind of journalist that I am and the kind of stories that I like to
yeah.
tell. So yeah, I mean, I think now all journalists are feeling that sense of empathy, unless they're like heart of stone.
But is that possibly what is leading to what some people have called? I know that what some people have called panic porn, and not with a negative intent, but because we are all afraid, because the storytellers are involved in the story, so there is no distance as necessary for objectivity. Is that possibly skewering the way stories are told and leading to a state of global panic in storytelling, at least?
Well, that is interesting. Panic porn. I haven't heard that before. I think I think the usual. You still still have to apply that measure of objectivity. You still have to apply that measure of journalistic integrity and all the rest of the things that govern our profession. So, you know, even though you're living it, you might just bring a different, additional layer of, I understand where you're coming from, but that shouldn't stop, you know, the quality of the journalism that you do. You know, you might tell in a different way, but it shouldn't, certainly hasn't affected mine or my teams. Not that I've noticed anyway. But panic porn, anything porn is, you know, what we try to avoid, because it kind of suggests a very kind of, you know, I can't think of a word. There's no finesse to it. There's no finesse. You're just kind of like sensationalizing an issue, and that's certainly not the kind of journalism that I practice or my organization. You know, there's a tendency. I mean, there's everything in this pandemic is given to hyperbole. You can go over the top because there's so much that we don't know about it, and there's so much that is fear-inducing about it. But I would like to think that my journalism is a little bit more measured, and not so kind of sensationalist.
Let me ask a controversial question. You know, it is a controversy is good for the soul. There are people who have, you know, minority opinions about the crisis. I know that I was. Can you hear me? Is it good?
You're breaking.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what to do about this. Okay. I'm going to keep figuring out how to solve this, but let's see whether I can still power through.
Okay.
I think we should put that off and see if that's permanently stops that. Okay, I think that might. Is it better? Is it any better?
I can hear you. I can hear
great.
you. Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, I was on social media today and I came upon this handle of Femi Fani-Kayode, who is a former minister of a lot of things in Nigeria. And he said he was of the opinion that there is a conspiracy, essentially, that this entire COVID thing is a global. I can't really keep track of who is behind the conspiracy, because sometimes I hear China and sometimes I hear Bill Gates, and then sometimes I hear America. So it's really difficult to keep track of who exactly wants to destroy Africa with this virus, and why exactly the person is also killing their own people.
Well, they're not succeeding. They're not doing very well at that job of killing Africans, are they?
It seems to be that they're not. But two questions. Even the slight sarcasm in my tone, does that essentially delegitimize these minority voices who are saying, look, I know there is a global consensus, but we think it's wrong? That's first. And really, should we be opening up space in the media for those kinds of people? You know, I mean, there was Elon Musk on the Joe Rogan. So I'm talking about Fani-Kayode in Nigeria. There's Elon Musk who wants to sue his municipal council to court, you know, to open his factory. He says this is a conspiracy. We're panicking too much. How much space should we open up for people like that at a time when we're trying to balance that with saving lives?
Well, listen, journalism still remains a business of facts and information. And the quality of the information must always be assessed. Right. You know, where is it coming from? What is their intent? Why are they putting out that information? All of these things must be interrogated. So therefore, I get where the conspiracy theorists and all the dissenting voices are coming from. It's a time of panic. It's unprecedented in our lifetime that, you know, something is happening. Nobody, regardless of who they are, really truly has a handle on it, because it's so unknown. The scientists can give theories and give models and etc., but nobody knows. You know, first it was 5G, and I'm thankful that 5G is now, you know, been found not to be the cause of coronavirus, which clearly it never was. But the 5G theorists have piped down, and, you know, they're not talking about and now it's a conspiracy, etc. You can't conspire to to cause a contagious infection. I mean, the facts are there. It's a contagious disease. And so therefore, if you want to take your chance and go out there and, you know, carry on as normal, then do that. But are you sure that when you do that, you're not putting other people at risk? You're not endangering my elderly mother, for example, or you know, your relatives or other people's relatives. If it was just the case of you go out there and take your chances, then we're fine. But it's a societal risk that we're running. You know, people are asymptomatic. People are, you know, they're not, you know, the incubation period we're told is about 2 weeks or 14 days, whatever. So there's just, you know, it's ridiculous that
so there are too many risks.
Too many risks.
Too many risks.
It's ridiculous that they're saying that, you know, COVID is the numbers speak for themselves. Look at the numbers of people that have died. And look at the numbers of cases, even just in Lagos, that are rising every day. You know, I don't know what the conspiracy is meant to achieve, but certainly they have failed woefully, because you know, this pandemic shows no signs of slowing down right now, and it's in waves. It's happening in waves. You know, Asia's had its wave, Europe is going through its wave. They think the next wave is going to be here. You know, and the numbers are rising here on the continent, although they are nowhere near the numbers we're seeing elsewhere, for various reasons. We don't know why, but I get it. I get people. They are, for some reason, not trusting the, you know, the usual sources, because we've always, you know, the society is polarized, and that's fine. And so this exacerbates that polarization, in a sense, because then anybody can just come and say, oh, this is why. You know, Bill Gates, oh my God, if I was Bill Gates, I would just bugger off to an island and just spend my money, you know, like I wouldn't bother trying to, you know, spend my money trying to eradicate world diseases, global diseases. Polio is about to be eradicated in this country because of the billions that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has spent over the years. So, you know, like the WHO has said, we're not. That's the situation we have on our hands.
Bless you.
So sorry,
let's talk about that. Before I want to explore that a bit, but let's come back to Nigeria. What exactly, I mean, I know that, I mean, you have sources and you have extensive, what exactly is happening in northern Nigeria? Why, I mean, let's talk about Kano. Let's not be too broad. Let's talk about Kano. Let's talk about the confusing gales of information coming from Kano. What exactly is happening there? Why is there so much suspicion? Why is there so much misinformation? And, you know, how do we reach, how do journalists reach out to the people, the everyday people in Kano, with the facts that can help them make better choices, so to speak? Because, I mean, if you're not even getting if the information you're receiving is slanted, then you can't even make choices for yourself. So I don't mind a person saying, I don't believe in this. That's fine. That's your choice. But you have to make an informed decision. So 2 questions. What exactly do you think? And have you gotten from your person in Kano? And how do journalists have some ray of fact shine sustainably in such spaces?
Well, you know, so kind of, you know, it's tricky. It's tricky to know without being actually on the ground. The people that we have spoken to include grave diggers, medics, UNICEF officials, and they're all saying that the numbers are rising, the numbers of deaths. A grave digger used to do like maybe 14 to 18 burials, and that's now increased to 40 to 50 per day. So that tells you, and then the demographic of elderly people that are dying. So that tells you that something is going on that is not being tracked necessarily, because, you know, they're relying on verbal double autopsies when people die because of the Islamic burial rites, which have to be done pretty much immediately. So with that kind of evidence, you have to, set up and happening. We spoke to the governor. He says that those deaths are not unusual. At the time, anyway, he said that those deaths are not unusual. And but the WHO has sent a team to kind of what exactly is going on. Interesting is that a group of civic individuals have enlisted the help of the emirs in Kano to spread the information, because I think these sources of influence, like the religious leaders and people like that, they're trusted. So you need to get them on board, and I'm surprised this was not done initially. You need to get them on board to tell people this is actually a danger. I mean, there were reports, I'm not sure if they were confirmed, but people like washing their hands and drinking the water. I mean, I'm not sure if it was Kano specifically, but there was a lot of distrust about the pandemic when people first heard about it. And religious leaders and people of influence helping to say, guys, stay at home. This is real. You can die. And you look at the evidence. Lots of prominent people in Kano have died. The emir of Rano has died. Has died. Have died. This is not a coincidence. So you can't go against facts. You can't go against evidence. That is just a clear. If you have a theory, fine, back it up with facts, and I will report it. Very simple. But if you don't, if you're just saying on hearsay or based on some anecdotal evidence or some very, very spurious source of it, I'm not going to report it. So that's the thing. Anybody can have a theory, but if you don't back it up with facts, then it ain't going to fly with me.
But isn't there, and I'm going to lean into this, and this is, I mean, I am not I'm not an investigative reporter, so I can share my opinions. I agree with you. I agree with you that in the world of theories, there has to be some kind of North Star that says, look, you're entitled to believe whatever you want to believe, but we can only have a sense of shared reality. What about a person that says, but that's the realm of facts and news? What about opinion? What about perspective? What about legacy platforms opening the space up to so-called conspiracy theories? So I hear someone say, when conspiracy theorists want to do this, you hear things like Galileo was a conspiracy theorist until it was confirmed. So person says that, what if this conspiracy theorist is hiding, is sharing a truth that needs to be heard? And I know you've answered that. I want to just lean in a bit, because these are the debates people are having. How do you respond to a person that says, well, okay, it's not a fact, but at least can you share my opinion about this? My opinion needs to be heard.
So with a platform like mine, you can't just give a platform that is so wide-reaching to just anybody. There has to be some credibility behind that person's opinion, behind who they are. What have they done that has led them to come up with these opinions? Opinion is fine, but you can't just open up a powerful platform to just anybody. There has to be some basis of fact in your opinions. Someone could come on and say, I have an opinion about Chude. And I said, okay, sure, it's your opinion. Come up and tell us about it. And then they talk all sorts of nonsense about you, and then we publish it in the guise of opinion. That's not going to fly. Not everybody. You know what they say about opinions. I'm not going to repeat it. But everyone, opinions are like...
I could repeat it.
Everybody has one. Everybody has one. So,
so there's a sense of responsibility.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But, the good thing about the social media age is that everybody is a publisher now. You can jump on your social media, YouTube, your whatever, and within reason, there's a reason why YouTube and Facebook and all the other platforms are removing people from their platforms, because they realize that people are just using it to spread nonsense that is not credible, and that is causing panic, that is causing anxiety in a time when there is so much of it already. So, you know.
So it's essentially you have a right to your opinion, but you don't have a right to your platform.
No, you don't. Unless you can back it up. Unless you can back it up. Yeah.
What are the most heartbreaking stories you've been hearing from this time in Nigeria? I think one of the real tragedies, and unfortunately, you know, sometimes I wish that I had unlimited resources, because I know that there are all these stories, human stories, that are not that I can't tell, you know, because, you know, we have to pick our spot and dig. But in your work, what are those or those more harrowing stories? I mean, I don't want to talk about them in terms of just to manipulate people, but then what are the things that have struck you from those stories that you've heard?
Well, for me, it's the fact that even before the lockdown, we were talking to people. You know, Nigeria, for example, has 60% of its economy made up by informal workers. You know, the people who earn money daily, the people who hawk, the people who are trading in traffic. They don't. If they don't earn that day, they don't eat. And so, before the lockdown, we were talking about people like this who were terrified because their livelihood was gonna, you know, be taken away for a good reason, but you know, they just did not feel that they were given the support needed to enable them to even survive in that lockdown. The first 2 weeks, right? And there was a woman in Kenya, I don't know if you read about her story, a widow with 4 or 5 children. Like, they went to sleep every night with no food, and in the end she was cooking stones. She put stones in water, in boiling water, and started to cook them. Like, what kind of desperation, you know? So those are the stories today. The stories of hunger, the stories of lack, the stories of you know, just people who feel completely abandoned. You know.
And do you think that enough of those stories are being told? Do you think that enough of stories are being told? Do you think enough of those stories are informing policy?
Well,
do you
listen.
think that?
So I told one of those stories, and you know, I got so much abuse. Oh, you only portray Nigeria in a bad way, you know, etc. And I'm like, you know what? If you're on social media, you have data. That means you're not hungry. That you're. I'm not talking to you. You're not my audience. Because if you are just concerned about the image of Nigeria when people are starving, then we don't have a conversation. We don't have a conversation. I also interviewed the governor of Lagos about a week and a half ago, and he admitted they gave 200,000 families relief in the lead up. There's some question about how effective the distribution was, but he admitted that it's only 200,000. They couldn't afford much more, you know? Like, Lagos is a lot more than 200,000 people.
I was going to ask that.
You know, but it's that's what they could do in the lead up to the lockdown, and you know, so with government, you have to, at this point, as a journalist, you're like, how hard do you go on the government, right? Like when it's completely crazy time, when they're really doing their best, but at the same time, are their policies going deep enough? Are their policies effective enough? So you do have to balance that with, you know, kind of criticizing and also trying to show them empathy in a time where they are dealing with unprecedented odds and unprecedented issues. But then saying that, one of the stories that I've pleased that we've been telling is how African governments across the board have underinvested in their healthcare sector. And so the chickens are coming home to roost a little bit for a lot of these governments, you know? It's like, well, you were able to like just dust off your passport and run to the US, or India, UK when you had an ailment, but now we're all in it together. You ain't running nowhere. So are you going to think twice now, post-pandemic, about the kind of healthcare legacy that you're going to leave your people? Because we're in it.
Apparently, we are in it together.
We're in it. A lot of prominent people have died. Probably most prominent in Nigeria is Abba Kyari.
Yes, it really went right up to the...
It went to the top. It went to the top. And for the first time, I think the elite Nigerians were experiencing the same thing, albeit in different degrees, as the rest of the country. And so, you know, that was a eye-opener, I think, for us. But yeah, that's
right.
I forget what the
Two questions about that. No, that's powerful. That's powerful. Two questions about a follow-up from that. One is, have Nigeria... so actually, three questions. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
One, many African presidents, not a lot of them, and even, I mean, now the rest of the world is catching up with Brazil and Hungary. We have this. Again, I'm not a news reporter, so I can be inobjective. I can be subjective. You know, we've had people who say foolish things as leaders across the world. But at this time, it seems to me like Africa's leaders have been circumspect. There has been none of, even this conspiracy theories of, you know, the West is coming to do this. We've not really had that. We've not really had an African president or a VP, at least that I know of, who has come to say something really ridiculous. Yeah. You've had people like in Malawi say things like, look, we need to feed our people. Yeah. So it's not that we don't acknowledge that there's a virus, but we just can't. We are between the devil and the deep blue sea here, and at least the devil we can negotiate with.
Yeah.
So that we've not had that explosion of, at least so you can rebut that, of just insane statements about this virus. Is that true? Has that been your experience?
Actually, I think you may be right. I mean, we had Mike Sonko, who's the governor of Nairobi, who was giving throat sanitizers, miniature bottles of Hennessy. That we did a story on that, and his popularity went soaring. And Mike Sonko is a eccentric guy. He's very interesting. But to be fair, you know, and the Ghana president came out and said, we know how to jumpstart economies, but we don't know how to bring people back alive. You know, you had President Museveni of Uganda doing press-ups in his palatial office, you know, saying, "Oh, Ugandans, stay at home. Let me show you how to exercise."
I love that, because there's also the Prime Minister of India who's been doing yoga.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, listen, this pandemic is one of leadership. It's showing up, good and bad leadership. It's showing up. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide. If you are not an effective leader, you are going to be exposed. And we're seeing that across the globe. African leaders, I think the biggest thing they've had to deal with is not mass death or mass outbreak yet, because the numbers are not there. But they're dealing with hunger. They're dealing with the kind of like the realities of their populations. You know, these people are living on daily wages. So when you lock down, they're going to suffer. How are you going to, you know, we've seen brutality, we've seen control, you know, we've seen people just very, very ineffectual. They don't know how to deal with it. So across the board, there's not been like one standout moment, but we have seen people revert into type and just, you know.
Low-grade incompetence.
Well, yes, exactly. It's actually just a continuation of whatever.
The same incompetence.
Yes.
Have they been responsive? Have they been responsive when you try to reach out to them, when you point out flaws, when you ask for information? I mean, you are in Nigeria, so I mean, maybe you stand that response, but also this is enough Nigeria. So have Nigerian leaders been responsive to questions? Questions about their handling of this virus?
I was surprised that the Lagos governor agreed to be interviewed on our Instagram Live, and he answered a few tough questions, and he was,
he did,
by all accounts, very, very knowledgeable and very. He wasn't a typical African leader. he was open and honest and
even vulnerable. That was
vulnerable. Exactly.
powerful. That was powerful.
You know, and that was a refreshing interview, if I'm honest. And then NCDC boss, he was one of the first people I spoke to when Nigeria confirmed the case. You know, and he was also very open, and you can see his interactions on social media. He's showing a different kind of leadership. It's transparent. It's like saying, you know what, guys, we don't have reagents. We need reagents. We're running out. And then he received reagents, and that's not the usual way that Nigerian leaders communicate. So that has changed, I think, something here. I would love to hear from the president more. You know, and
we all would love to.
You know, I just feel like even though it's not in his remit, it's a health ministry. You know, I think in moments like this, the president is the kind of father figure, if you like, the kind of patrician voice who gives the reassurance and updates. Say, my dear,
or the mother figure if it's New Zealand and Western Europe.
Oh, well, no. I mean, I'm talking about Nigeria.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, just kidding.
I'm talking about Nigeria specifically. You know, the president needs to be more vocal and visible, but we don't know why. But in his place, other people are stepping into the fray. And the presidential task force, I watch their briefings every day, and it's always informative. So there's not a lack of information, actually. When covering this pandemic. But to be fair, my job and my team's job is not to give updates on headlines. You know, we're doing a kind of thematic approach to the news. We've done police brutality, we've done domestic violence, the rise of domestic violence. You know, we spoke to Warif.
I'll ask about that. Go ahead.
Yes, Warif NG, we've got a story coming out on that. You know, so we're looking, you know, because it's a busy time. We're so busy. There's so many stories. So we took the decision that we're not going to chase headlines. We're not going to write every spit and cough. Like, that's a national newspaper role or national media. International media, we want to look at overview. What are the themes? What are the big themes coming out? And we did a heartbreaking story out of Kenya. A 13-year-old boy standing on his balcony, watching the curfew, and for some reason the police were shooting. They were firing bullets. Standing on his balcony, one of those bullets hit this poor boy, and he died.
Oh dear.
You know, he died. Like, how do you die on your balcony in your house just because there's a curfew outside? So, and the police in Kenya on the first few days of the lockdown were very, very heavy-handed. The president apologized. So, you know, we're looking at the wider themes and trying to like really figure out what is going on, what is the pulse. And then another thing that's interesting for me is this Madagascar cure. It's not gone through any trials, it's not gone through any clinical studies, but African governments are ordering this tonic. On like 15, 20 countries on the continent have ordered these tonics. Okay, well,
and I guess also because the African Union is essentially, there's an undercurrent of legitimacy that the African Union is providing. I think that's what's leading governments to say, okay, the African Union is making appropriate noises, I might as well try it.
Yes, well, it remains to be seen. But you know, actually, there's a sense of, you know, they are providing African solutions to a problem. So there's a sense of pride in that sense. I think that's kind of leading people to rush. And it's herbal remedies. Like, what harm can it really do? You know, so it's like, let's go. It's 50-50. We do it, and if it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, then they're a bit more reinforced with some tonic that we don't really know what's in it, but no one's gonna die from tonic, right?
From tonic, okay. Well, I'll take. We have 8 minutes more.
Oh wow, that's gone quickly.
Well, so I'll take questions. I'll take 2 questions. If anybody has questions, please share them, and I'll ask them. Stephanie will see them. But do you think that there's this balancing the economic, this is a debate that America is always facing, is having at the moment. And Nigeria is not really having that debate. And it's interesting that it should have a more textured debate. And I'm talking about the economic impact, balancing economic impact with health.
Right.
I'm saying sometimes economics is the art of, I try not to say something that sounds wicked, but sometimes governments have to make choices between this number of lives and this number of lives. Yeah. And when it comes to the economics of it, the economics of it is like, well, if we don't do this now in the medium to long term, we're going to be dealing with this number of deaths and this number of illness vis-a-vis doing this. And so that's discussions about lockdowns, discussions about, vaccines, discussions about taking foreign aid, discussions about relationship with China. Well, it's only China that everybody's up in arms about. I'm sure Vladimir Putin is happy that nobody's calling his name. So it's those kinds of conversations. Governments are having to balance that, and companies are having to balance that. Surviving this submerging economy with trying to keep their team members, their share, all of that healthy. I also remind people that pension. So when money, it's not just about their shareholders. It's also the fact that your mom's pension, your dad's pension, my mom's pension, my dad's pension might be tied to the stock prices of some of these companies. And so they're looking at long-term wealth, long-term, security, long-term insurance. What is how does a journalist tell these stories at the same time? Try to be sensitive to long-term, medium-term consequences, which are not easy to emote about.
Yeah.
While holding space for for immediate human health consequences, which are easier to paint stories about. How do you balance that?
Yeah, I mean, ours is not to, theorize ours is to just report, right? And that comes in the variety of people that we're talking to. We're talking to SMEs. Adele Sakwe here has started this amazing campaign to get a network of SMEs to, get them united, get them a collective voice to lobby for, government assistance, etc. Colleagues in places where they've opened up are going. So my colleague in Turkey, for example, went to a hairdresser that was opened up. I mean, that's one of the kind of, hairdresser, they're so close to you, and how does this work? So people are tentatively trying to go back and restart economies and all of that. But we can only just report all of the different occurrences and the different things that everybody's doing. No one has the right answer. But one thing I will say is stocks rebound. We've been there before. Stocks rebound, markets rebound, businesses pick up. But if the workforce is decimated to a point where people are just not, so it has to be a people first. I mean, that's my personal opinion. It has to be a people first approach. Because like an economist would have a different approach or different theory, but people first. If we decimate the workforce through a pandemic and by not taking precautions, then we will not have people to go back to work.
Absolutely. And that's powerful perspective. And it's even like just the point, I think someone should make into a bumper sticker, markets rebound. Because, something that Warren Buffett has said in the last shareholders meeting, I think last weekend, was, look, America went through the World War, and this took years. I think this took at least, of a market tanking. But markets full of resourceful, sometimes it can even be a false dichotomy to say, oh, look at, prices are going down. Maybe you lose a few luxuries, maybe you lose a few points temporarily on on the stock market, but really wealth is for people and not people for wealth. So
Exactly.
that's powerful. And I guess it's the job of a journalist and a storyteller to kind of weave this, because the stories you're telling are about people primarily.
Yes.
So you look at the economic perspective, look at the health perspective, and then you
Yeah.
say, how did these converge on the lives of people? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, what I want to tell essentially is the stories, the people of the people in the pandemic. So that's why we started this new series, Heroes and Newsmakers.
Yes,
It's to
that's a powerful
celebrate.
series, by the way.
Thank you. It's really to celebrate the people who may
Yeah.
never get acknowledged.
Yeah.
People who are at the front line, people who are
Yeah.
giving up their money, their time to feed others.
Yeah.
I won't get to everybody. We won't talk to everybody, but we want to acknowledge some of them. And then we bring in the people who are making the news, who are making the policies, and say, what are you doing about these specific things? So those are the stories that I'm interested in telling. And that's what we do every Wednesday. I'll get my plug in Wednesday and Thursday on CNN Africa. So it's that those are the stories because those are the stories that will endure after the pandemic, right?
Yeah, that's what the stories are. Yes, because those are the stories. Those are eternal, universal stories about the triumph of the human spirit, about people coming together to fight a common enemy. We never really tell. It's not really the story of, oh, I made $1 million more on an investment that lasts 3 times.
Listen. If you have private jets, 10 houses, all of bags and shoes, you ain't going nowhere. Where are you wearing them?
Yes, I mean, I think it's beautiful and poetic that private jets can't take off. I think it's really a beautiful, metaphor for, when we say we are all in this together.
We
it
really
can be
are.
difficult if some people can really just fly out willy-nilly. But if, no, we are literally...
You ain't going nowhere.
I love it so much. I love it. I mean, I love it. Okay, final question. 2 things. One, final 2 questions. So we have a very engaged audience. Okay, so I have a question finally.
Okay.
What I like this comment from Jujaga: human life is the most important consideration in any conversation. I think that's powerful.
Yeah.
There's a real comment from Sarina. Period has really tested the battle in the mind. Am I really in control of my money, or does it control me? But we have a question from Jenica, who has really been following this. And how has COVID-19 had any impact on news agencies? Any real impact? And 2, what's the next step for journalism post-COVID? I know that. So I mean, in the UK, it's a bloodbath. For newspapers, for instance, it's just like bloodbath. Vox has started asking for donations. I never thought the day would come when I'll see Vox asking for donations. So, but you are in the thick of it. Tell me.
Yeah. Because advertising models have been decimated. The economy, people are not really spending. The people that would normally buy advertising space or airtime, etc., aren't spending as much right now, or may not spend as much. So the journalism is going to be in a crisis. There's no, it's not going to be avoided. But it's been, the demise of newspapers has been predicted for a long time. So it finds new ways to reinvent, and it's a resilient industry. We'll see how resilient it really can be. But it's a shame because there's a lot of quality journalism going on, but it's the funding models just aren't there.
Yeah. So what is the next step? I don't know how you take. It's a very wide-ranging question, but Ginika says, what's the next step for journalism post-COVID?
Well, we just have to ride it out. We have to get through COVID first and then see where we land. In my mind, I feel that 2020 may just be written off in some way because I'm not planning to leave my house until at least September. Unless there's a miracle drug or vaccine or whatever that comes. That social distancing for me is critical. I'm not, after weeks of lockdown, about to catch COVID. So I'm staying put. And if you
I'm
can,
staying put as well.
if you can stay everything when after the pandemic. So it's like BP and AP.
I love that. AP and BP. I need to put again. You're giving me bumper stickers. You're giving me bumper stickers.
Damn it! I should patent these.
You should patent them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Jinika says we're going to act like 2020 never happened after it's gone.
Girl, I feel you.
I feel you. Yeah. But thank you so much for this, Stephanie. Thank you. This has been a fantastic conversation. I like it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I thank everybody for joining us. Don't forget to join the CNN Africa Heroes and Newsmakers series.
Yes, Wednesday and Thursday.
Wednesday and Thursdays. Powerful stories have been shared. My dear friend Adebola has been one of your guests. The governor of Lagos has been a guest. And so that has been fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you to EIE. Yeah, go ahead. You're going to say something.
Also, on Wednesday, we have a former president of Mauritius, who is an eminent scientist, Amina Gurib-Hakim. So she's going to talk about remedies and African, solution to this issue. So yeah, join us.
Join them. Join CNN Africa. I find that very impressive, and I thought that her leaving the job just because of what I thought was really not a scandal was just
just let's not go there.
Let's not go there. Yes. Well, thank you for doing this, and don't forget those who are joining us. Tell your friends to join us every day this week. I'll be hosting a series of conversations. We have another special guest tomorrow, 5 p.m. on the EIE Nigeria handle. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you. Bye.